topics, and also to allow questions to come in from you, and to also ask you some questions so we can know if who we are reaching, and what kinds of interests you have and what kinds of experiences you have. And we'll be exploring this with the Zoom poll interface, and also a little bit later, as we are more confident, we're going to explore maybe the whiteboard and some other ways of interacting with you and allowing you to respond. We will also be ending with a long question answer session, and that will focus on the course material for this week. So we've already drawn some questions from the form that people have filled out already. And please be aware you can answer your questions ahead of time. Those are more likely to be answered during our weekly session. So you get the link for that in your weekly email as well. So today, after this introductory session, we're going to have a few poll questions. I think we have 3 questions that we're going to ask you, and you'll see the results displayed. And then I'm going to present for about 10 minutes more material, expand on some material from lesson 1 that was offered this week. And then we're going to have a series of additional poll questions that we're asking you. These are short answer or a multiple choice. And then we're going to end with the 20-minute Q&A, question and answer session. And for that session, we'll be using the questions that were already asked in the form, or we may take some questions directly from the audience, in which case you will put your question in the Q&A box that you see at the bottom of your screen. So thank you for being here, and please remember to write your questions in the Q&A box.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Robin, for giving us a rundown of the session. Again, for those who are joining, please turn on interpretation in the language of your choice. As Robin mentioned, this course is being offered in 4 languages: English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. And you're welcome to do that through the information that has been sent to you in the chat. So we would love to get a sense for who's in the room. We're going to set up some poll questions to hear a little bit from you guys. The first question is, what country are you joining from? You're welcome to put your answer in the poll as a short answer, and then we'll be seeing a word cloud put up on the screen. So please share, where are you coming from? Where are you joining from? We have 290 of us in the room. So we're getting those numbers come in quickly. And just to share, we have about 4,468 people registered for the entire ANR practitioner program that was launched this year. So we have huge numbers today, guys. It's really, really exciting. All right. Give a few more moments for people to respond. Okay, I think we'll end the poll here. Let's take a look at our results. Can we all see that? Can we see the results? Helen, would you mind sharing with us how we can get a sense for this?
Yes, just pulling that up right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, hopefully you guys can see my screen.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, so we have a big Colombia, beautiful. A lot of folks from Colombia, from Portugal, some from Canada. Wonderful. I'm from Canada as well. I'm signing in from Montreal. We have lots of folks from USA. I don't know if this South Africa is one, or there's just South here. Um, we have Germany, Kenya, Spain, Brazil, Uganda, India, Zambia, Guinea, Italy, Brazil, Chile. Wow. Folks, we are signing in from all over the world. It's beautiful to see so many people represented here from so many different nations. Well, and to get more of a sense of familiarity, we'd love to get a sense for how have you worked with ANR in the past? Have you implemented or researched ANR in the past? Feel free to put that into the second poll question here. So this could be project-based implementation, this could be research, this could be even education work. We'd love to hear a sense for what kind of familiarity and engagement you've had with ANR before. Is it entirely new for you? Is it something that you're planning on implementing in your projects? Give us a sense for where you're at. All right, we already have 238 responses. Okay. I'll give you a couple more seconds here. Thanks so much for putting on your screens as well. It's beautiful to see so many faces that are part of this program. Okay, we're going to end the poll here now. So we actually have like a 50% majority, just a 51% majority that is actively implementing restoration projects with ANR. And then we have a good portion that will be doing so soon. So this is perfect for laying the groundwork and the foundation for ANR and how you can actually implement it into your projects. And so this is great. This actually segues us perfectly to Robin, who will share with us about 4 different pathways of ANR.
Thank you, Yulia. I'm going to share my screen again. And
خد يا عمر.
okay, hopefully you're all able to see this. So for those of you who watched the video that you received a link from earlier in the orientation email, I'm going to elaborate a bit about what I talked about in that video, which is something that occurred to me actually while I was doing a lot of the working on the preparation for the course. And that is that ANR means a lot of different things to different people. And that's because it really has come about through 4 different pathways. So I'm going to go through those in some detail here. The first is that ANR has been very important as a fallow management practice, adopted by indigenous peoples who are using shifting cultivation. And this is a millennial old set of practices around the world. Oops. Sorry, I've just lost that. Okay. And second, it's also been very important in forest management and reforestation. So it's a forestry technique and approach. Third is its role for farmers as part of farmer-based natural regeneration. And fourth, as an ecological restoration approach. So I'm going to go into some detail about each of these 4 pathways and how they are all now becoming part of ecosystem restoration. So when we talk about ANR as fallow management, we're talking about what happens in shifting cultivation after the land has been used to grow crops for a few years. Then it is let go, it is fallowed, so to speak, to regenerate. And it is to the advantage of the shifting cultivators to promote the recovery of that land as quickly as possible. And mostly that involves going through promoting the natural regeneration process. That is also very important to rejuvenate soils that may have become exhausted or depleted of resources. It's important in this stage to control invasive weeds and to manage pests so that this land could be reused for sustainable crop production in the future and regenerate the land. So this has been a very important and sustainable practice followed by Indigenous peoples throughout the world. And the aim here is really the practices are designed to accelerate the recovery of soil fertility, to suppress weeds, and to also provide economic resources through the species that are growing up in the fallow. And so instead of really the fallows being abandoned land, they really are often very actively managed. And so the original ANR practitioners were shifting cultivators, and they also may have done enrichment planting in many cases. They would plant valuable tree species from the area that produce fruit or fiber or firewood or timber in some cases, or medicines. They would plant these in the fallow and use them throughout the fallowing, the recovery process, and thereby integrating forestry with agriculture. And that was one of the key sustainability factors for shifting cultivation. As a forestry management approach, ANR is about managing forests for timber or non-timber products in a sustainable manner. And this is done by assisting the regeneration, following either selective logging or, in some cases, natural disturbances that have affected the forest area, and also by minimizing damage to the stand as harvesting is happening. So the whole goal is to accelerate the growth of native species for commercial production and to promote the recovery of the forest to sustain multiple ecosystem services. That could also include recreation or watershed management. So the practices used in this case involve reduced impact logging to minimize the damage on trees and soils, climber and liana cutting, liberation thinning to allow the desirable tree species to grow better, retention of seed trees, and targeted planting to restore commercial species. And we also see ANR being used as a reforestation approach through forestry agencies. This would be after the forest has been cleared and used for cropping or for pasture in some cases. In that case, the key practices are managing grazing pressure, weed and grass suppression, fire management, soil preparation, control of pests and invasive species, and also we see supplemental or enrichment planting. The route through farmer-managed natural regeneration involves the systematic regeneration and sustainable management of trees and shrubs that are growing from the living tree stumps and roots or seeds in the soil. So these trees are not planted, but they are selected from naturally regenerating individuals. And the whole technique of farmer managed natural regeneration is to help these individuals to grow best and to provide sustainable farming practices. I'm sorry, I just lost my slide here. Okay. So they are providing economic benefits and also environmental benefits for farmers. So the practices involve selecting tree stumps or rootstocks, and for each of these stumps, they select which are the tallest and straightest stems that they want to grow into trees by pruning these stems and side branches and managing threats to remaining branches from livestock, from fire, and competing vegetation or weeds. And also the practices involve culling stems from the ground to reduce competition and pruning side branches from time to time. So it's really tending, very much focused on tending individual trees and also using the products of those trees on their farms. Now, finally, ANR is being conducted also as an ecological restoration approach. And ecological restoration is aiming to accelerate the recovery of a natural ecosystem by identifying and protecting existing native species and removing barriers to their growth. And why is this important? Because ANR is being demonstrated to be very cost effective and very flexible for restoring native ecosystems under suitable conditions. And these are conditions where there may be some barriers to natural regeneration, but there are also conditions that allow the capacity for natural regeneration in that area. And under those conditions, the ANR practices can help reduce those barriers and enhance the recovery. So what kind of practices are used? You're going to be learning a lot more about these in the next weeks. In identifying and protecting saplings that are in the area that are coming up naturally, weeding by a variety of methods, ring weeding or grass pressing, and in some cases using weed control agents. Appropriate fire management is important. That can be adding fire or removing fire, depending on the ecosystem, fencing and grazing control. Controlling pests and invasive species, and also enrichment planting can be used. So you're seeing some common themes throughout all these different interventions. And this is the restorative continuum. This is shown in lesson 1 with these 6 different ways of restoring land through ecosystem restoration. It can involve all of these different activities from just improving sustainability practices to remediation and rehabilitation. And then steps 4, 5, and 6 are ecological restoration. And the goal here of ecological restoration is the partial or full recovery of native ecosystems. And that contrasts with the goal of rehabilitation and remediation, which are mostly concerned with improving ecosystem services or sustainable land uses, but without necessarily aiming to fully recover a native ecosystem. So these can be more productive ecosystems or ecosystems that are being heavily managed for particular purposes. So when we talk about ecosystem restoration, we're talking about this big umbrella that includes all of these different practices. And we can think of the goals of ecosystem restoration are to halt, prevent, and reverse the degradation of damaged natural ecosystems, to regain their ecological functionality, enhance biodiversity, and improve human well-being. That is a very, very broad goal, and it can include any of these entry points using ANR. So ANR can be fallow management, which is more of a rehabilitation and a sustainability practice. It can be forest management, which is also rehabilitation and sustainability practice. It can be farmer managed natural regeneration, which is all rehabilitation and sustainability practice. Or it can be ecological restoration, which is aiming to restore the natural ecosystem. So that was my presentation, and if you have any questions, please put those in the Q&A, and we'll try to get to them. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thanks, Robin. Hopefully that gives us some good groundwork and framework to look at the different variations of ecosystem restoration, how they differentiate, how they separate, and you'll see a lot more of that detail as well in the lessons 1 and 2. There's a lot more of that clarity and explanation too as you need. So as we move forward, we're going to be moving into some more poll questions to get a sense for how much of this work and what kind of applications and what avenues you're engaging with within that context that Robin just explained. So we'll have our first poll question come up. And the question is, which do you feel is closer to your work as a restoration practitioner? Are you engaging in ecological restoration, rehabilitation, neither, or not sure? And I can give a quick sense for like the difference between them. They're both environmental repair strategies, but they differ in their goals. Restoration seeks to fully recover the degraded ecosystem to its original historical state, whereas rehabilitation tends to focus more on like land functionality and productivity without necessarily returning original biodiversity. So we'll give you guys a chance to throw in your responses. And in the meantime, feel free to put any questions in the Q&A. I'll be sorting through them afterwards. Beautiful. Yeah, and I hear you a couple of comments from the chat saying that it depends on the socio-ecological context and that goals can shift over time. Of course they can. And that really depends on the management strategy that you're engaging in, the context that you're in, of course. But we're really asking right now, where are you at in your work as a restoration practitioner? Beautiful. I think we'll pause here. Share the results. So can everyone see that? We have about 61% that are ecological restoration practitioners, which is amazing. We're speaking to the crowd that really gets a sense for what we're doing. Same with rehabilitation. It's great that we have much smaller representation of rehabilitation, about 24%. About 9% are neither, and still 7% are unsure. So we have a huge proportion of us are engaging truly with ecological restoration. Our next question, we'll throw up here in the poll as well. It says, which type of ANR applications are you most likely to use or have used in the past? So we have fallow management or indigenous agroforestry. We have forest or other ecosystem type management. We have farmer managed natural regeneration, as Robin explained, ecological restoration, other forms of ANR applications, or not entirely sure. So we'll give you about a few more, like 20 more seconds to throw in your responses here. So far, we're seeing a good portion of us are doing forest or other ecosystem type management. Oh, we have the dominance in ecological restoration. Those two are leading the way. We also have some farmer managed natural regeneration. Beautiful. I'll end the poll here. We've had a good amount of responses. Great. So truly, we have ecological restoration being represented in the room. We have great other forest and other ecosystem type management. If you are working with other ecosystems beyond forests, please put that in the chat. That's one of the things as we were building out the course that we wanted to make sure that there was various ecosystem types represented. So there was applications to grasslands, savannas. We looked at wetlands. Feel free to throw in the chat which kinds of ecosystem management you engage with. And we have about 16, we have 30% farmer managed natural regeneration and 16% fallow management and indigenous agroforestry, which is great. Great. And only a few that are engaged with other or not sure. So if you have something other that you're doing, feel free to put that in the chat. We'd love to take a look at that as well. What other forms of ANR applications are you engaging with? Beautiful. So we have our next poll question. Let me just take a quick look in the chat and see what other ecosystem types you guys are engaging with. Forest wetlands, coastal wetlands, urban maritime, bosques subantárticos. Ooh, fun ecosystems, scrublands. We have regional parks, forest stream bank restoration, invasive plant management, native plantings, Afro high altitude forests, heathlands, scrublands, abandoned farmlands, humedales y parederas. Beautiful. Finbows, fun.
Savannah.
Yeah, savanna, heathlands, dune thickets, mangrove and grasslands. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, Helen, I'm wondering if there's a way that we can capture the diversity of ecosystem types here in the chat. Are we able to save the chat somehow and take a look at this?
Yes, we can't share them live right now in a word cloud, unfortunately, but we can save the chat for after the meeting.
Beautiful. We'd love to hold on to that so we can look at that future application for the course that'll be running. Again, it'll be running in 2027 and 2028 as well. So we have our next question, which is, do you work with Indigenous communities to implement restoration? We have 29% that said yes, 35% said no, 34% said no, not currently, but plan to in the future, and then 2% said not sure. So yeah, this is a really important framing, and you'll see this theme throughout our entire course is working with local communities, Indigenous communities. They are the ones that are holding long-standing traditional ecological knowledge, and integrating them fundamentally in the process is foundational for the success of any ecosystem restoration project or management plan. I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of this, and hopefully we'll be implementing that future in your work. We have a whole, in the coming lectures and the coming modules, we have a whole module dedicated to social landscape assessment and how to actually engage with the local community as well. Beautiful. So we'll move on to our fourth poll question, which is, do you integrate traditional or local knowledge in your restoration work? We have no, yes, not currently, plan to in the future, and not sure. And for those of you that have already responded, feel free to put in the chat the ways in which you engage. We'd love to get a sense for how you're already implementing that. We already see like a 57% of you already are implementing this in your restoration work. So please share with us how you're engaging with it. So we see local communities, but non-Indigenous communities, both are important, right? Local communities, those that wherever the project is, wherever the landscape is, the community itself is foundational and fundamental to the success of the project. So whether it's local, whether it's Indigenous, as much as we can to get representation is important. We see working with them in seed collection and species attributes, protecting the natural forest, knowledge on water terrain flow, working with community meetings to gather their perspectives, co-creating restoration pathways and assessing monetary and non-monetary ecosystem services and cost-benefit disturbances. That's wonderful. Thank you, Alberto. Preferences and use for specific native trees, indigenous cultural burning and forest fire management. Absolutely. Traditional small-scale farming, working with species that are important in the restoration process. Thank you, guys. Thank you for sharing. All right, our fifth question is more of a short answer. So we'll invite you to put in a short answer. In one word, what do you believe is the biggest benefit to using ANR? And there's tons. And maybe you don't have a full sense yet, and that's part of why this course is delivered, is to give you the broad range of benefits and some of the challenges that are possible in implementing ANR. But from your perspective, even from the first couple of lessons, if you haven't yet implemented ANR in your projects, what would you say is the biggest benefit for using ANR? We have about 173 responses right now. We're just over half. I'm going to give you guys a little bit more time just to put in your responses here so we can get a little bit more representation. And in the meantime, if you have questions about applications, again, feel free to put them into the Q&A. I'll be taking a look at that afterwards. So if there's anything more specific, feel free to put that there. Beautiful. We have about 200 responses, so I'll pause that there. Let's take a look at the results in the word cloud format.
Yes, I'll share my screen if you give me just a moment, please. Can everyone see that?
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. And the
Oh,
biggest,
that's beautiful.
yeah, the biggest word is biodiversity here, right? And there's such a huge representation of biodiversity that's able to come through. It's allowing for the ecosystem to move through its natural process and create species assemblages that represent the conditions of the ecosystem itself. And from there, we can move through and refine and tweak and allow for greater biodiversity to come through as well. So that's really beautiful. That is, of course, the first the first and biggest. The second is cost, and inherently, absolutely, that is one of the biggest benefits of it too. It's one of my greatest appreciations of it is allowing for ecosystem and ecological restoration to happen at large scales, right? We can't always manage landscapes at the individual site scale. We have to be able to look at how can we scale this across geographies and across large plots. We have restoration, regeneration, of course, protection, sustainability, resilience, absolutely, ecological, native, allowing native species and seed banks to come through, absolutely. It's effective, efficient, local. Yes, there's focus on the local site scale and the ecological seed bank that is present on the landscape itself too, allowing that to emerge and come through. And yeah, restoring ecosystems. I think some of the words got jumbled here, so there's probably pairings that of some of these words that are meant to go together. But thank you guys for your responses. And our last question here is same, it's going to be a short answer poll. And we'd love to get a sense for what do you believe the biggest challenge, fear, or unknown to implementing ANR is? So if you are implementing ANR in your projects, feel free to share a challenge that you've experienced thus far. If you are not, if you are still in the process of learning about how to engage with ANR in your projects, feel free to share a fear or unknown in implementing ANR so we can kind of get a sense for what you're needing. Beautiful. We have about 140 responses. About halfway of you responded. Thank you. Okay. I think I'll pause that here. We're about 60% participation, so we'll take a look at those results. And it's beautiful to get a sense for over the span of 300 people, what are some of the challenges that you're experiencing?
And you know, Yulia, I'm not seeing a word cloud come up for oh yes, I am. Sorry, I was too zoomed in. Let's try that again. Can you guys see that all right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. The biggest is knowledge. And I see lack here, right? So lack of knowledge, um, which is precisely why this course exists, right? Is to fill that gap of knowledge. Time, time, of course, it's of course a huge part of assisted natural regeneration is allowing the cycles to unfold, the natural cycles of the ecosystem to unfold, and that does require time. It's not an immediate quick fix, it's not an immediate solution, but it does hold and build that resilience in the long term. See land, potentially land access, local change, land change potentially, ignorance, politics, communities, right? Yeah, I think communities here is important, right? There's challenges on on land use, of what and where to allocate land, and whether it should be implemented towards assisted natural regeneration. And these are some of the topics that we end up covering in the course. Community monitoring, absolutely. Monitoring is a consideration, setting up the right monitoring protocols, and making sure that there's funding all the way throughout the monitoring process as well to measure tangible results. Awareness, of course, yeah. I mean, a huge part of, I think a huge part of this is that people aren't aware that assisted natural regeneration is one of the tools in the toolbox for ecological restoration and ecosystem management. Beautiful. I think I'll stop sharing the results here. And I appreciate everyone sharing their perspectives. Yeah, I think what stands out to me is that the challenges being raised here are exactly why this course exists. These questions around uncertainty, implementation, policy, finance, monitoring, social acceptance, ecological suitability, they're all topics that we'll explore together over the coming weeks. Beautiful. So we'll move over to the Q&A portion of our session. Over the past week, participants have had a chance to submit a number of thoughtful questions through the forum. And Sarah has selected a few of those questions that kind of reflect the common themes that are emerging across the course. So I'll pull up a screen here. I'll share my screen for those questions. Can you all see that well? Is that coming up?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Let me try and stop sharing, and I'll try again. Robin, are you seeing anything on my screen here?
It just says that you've started screen sharing, but I don't see it. It's okay. I think you can just start asking the questions.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay, let me then pause the screen share here and go right into them. So the first question that you guys had submitted was, how do we determine how suitable ANR is for any given context? For a specific given context? What is the first phase of assessment? And we have Robin here that we're inviting into answering the questions. And we also have Sarah Wilson, who is part of the ANR expert team, and as needed, we'll move them between.
Yeah. So, I mean, even before you start ANR, it's really important to do an assessment, and lesson 3 focuses, and 4 also focus a lot on how to conduct those assessments, what things you would need to measure, and how you use that information to determine if ANR is even a suitable approach for that particular area. And I would say that the single most important factor is seeing some evidence that natural regeneration is already happening in that area. It could be at a very, very early stage, or it could be at a later stage where you have the ecosystem really undergoing succession, and that tells you that the conditions are suitable in that site. And then for the assessing your own the outcomes of your interventions, that's another step that involves carefully selecting the appropriate interventions and then undertaking a monitoring program that allows you to assess their progress over time. And ideally, you compare that with a site where you didn't do those interventions, so you can really understand the key value of those interventions. It's a very site-specific phenomenon, natural regeneration, and also it's hard to use a single metric for all kinds of locations and different ecosystems. So it really requires some knowledge and understanding, including the traditional knowledge of what to expect in the case of where regeneration is proceeding well, and what to expect, and where it is being arrested or is not proceeding well. What also are the indicators of that?
Beautiful. Sarah, is there anything you'd like to add to that question?
Yeah, I'll just add from a social perspective that areas with lower opportunity costs tend to be better candidates. Not to say you can't do assisted natural regeneration in the middle of a big city, but places where there's less fighting for the land, it's more likely that people will be interested in experimenting with letting forests grow back and the benefits that they'll get from that, as opposed to a monoculture field. So opportunity cost, and then also just cultural awareness of the benefits of young forests. So places where they do fallows, places where there is some history of working with younger forests, those might be better candidates. Again, not to say you can't bring people on board in places where that's not part of the culture, but that does help.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for offering both the ecological and the social context here. I'm just noticing that we're 5 minutes out and we won't be able to get through all of our questions here. So I'm gonna go into a little bit more case specific questions, if that's okay. We have someone that asked, what is the most successful strategy for shifting local farmers' perspectives from traditional high input cultivation to adopting ANR practices? And how do we measure the socioeconomic benefits they gain in the short term?
Sarah, would you like to try that one?
If you have thoughts, Robin, I'll let you go first.
Well, I would say the cases where ANR has become so widely adopted are where the farmers just very, very quickly began perceiving benefits from the practice. And this was with farmer-managed natural regeneration in Niger and Mali. And it spread very widely from farmer to farmer. I don't know that they were using intensive agriculture before then, but what was key was that they clearly were receiving benefits. They were seeing improvements in their crops and in their cattle, and they were being able to harvest products from the naturally regenerating trees that improve their income and their livelihoods. And if ANR can achieve that, and farmers will appreciate it, will adopt it, and it will spread, almost certainly, if there aren't too many obstacles to doing so.
Yeah, and I'll also just add to that there's the idea of people. There need to be benefits that people can get from ANR in this case, right? And not only do they have to be benefits that actually the people could use, but the people have to perceive that those benefits are important. So that's something I think that often gets missed is it's like, oh, you're going to get these benefits and that benefits. Maybe they're not the right alignment with what people actually need or perceive that they need, right? So there's a lot of social groundwork there to both show that the benefits will be accrued, but also that they're meaningful benefits. And in those are the situations where you really see practices like ANR start to spread, or farmer-managed natural regeneration spread, is when people actually really hold on to those benefits and see it as essential to their livelihoods.
Yeah, thank you. And that really ties us back into making sure that we're building those relationships with the community to get that feedback loop and that communication cycle going. I'm going to pull one more question here from the chat from Armando Cruz from Portugal. He said, from what I understand, a lot of ANR approaches at are long-term projects. How do we promote this dedication for the long term, especially with local governments, or I imagine he said local communities that prefer fast results or that want fast results?
Yeah, that is a really important question, and I don't know that I can answer it very well. I would say that ANR alone can't be the only driver here, that there needs to be other societal support for these practices, and other kinds of incentives that are given to communities and to local people to make this work, given that there are other short-term alternatives that are desirable. And I do think that, again, when people do perceive those benefits and they see that they're going to continue and get even richer in the future, that alone can't explain why they should practice ANR in the long term, but that will enable them to understand the importance of sticking with it and realizing that in the end it's going to be really worth it.
I have two concepts to add to what Robin said. One is demonstration sites. So it's really important in a lot of cases with ANR to have a longer, a few years out, have a site that's under ANR that's had a chance to accrue benefits so that people can see them, and then sharing that with people so that they can see, even if I'm not getting anything the first year or two, down the road, it's going to happen and they're going to be really good. The other is the concept of the landscape approach, where you're combining ANR with something like agroforestry. For example, where I worked in Ecuador, there was a coffee cooperative that was enticing people to grow coffee agroforestry systems. And as a part of that, they also required people allow a certain amount of land of their farm to grow back for them to participate in this coffee cooperative, which was really lucrative. So there's things like that. You can combine it with other approaches, and also just demonstrating the benefits far out is really important. And that's the example that Robin gave before about the FMNR in Niger is really, that was a really critical part of it, was people were able to see on other farms that this had already worked and was giving benefits. And that's why they were willing to stick with it. And sometimes it can happen. Benefits can also start happening really fast in some cases too. Like in the Niger case, people were able to get firewood off of those regenerating places in a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on the context.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both. There's so many incredible questions here. I encourage you, I wish we could have time to answer all of them, but we've actually over our budget for time right now. So I'd encourage you to put those into the forum. If you guys can share perspectives there, we can try and take time to address them. Please keep bringing your questions as well every live session. You're welcome to submit your questions ahead of time, and we have a chance to distill those and try and pull out common threads and themes. So I'm going to wrap up our session here. I want to thank you all for joining us today. It's been really wonderful to see how many participants from so many different countries and restoration contexts that are coming together for this first session. So on behalf of the entire course team, thank you. Thank you for your engagement, for your questions, and for your willingness to share your experiences. Keep working through the course materials, connect with fellow participants, and bring your questions. We look forward to learning alongside you in the coming weeks. Thank you all for being here. Have a beautiful day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you at the next session. Thank you. Bye, everybody. All the love. Oh,
Hi,
yeah.
thank you, Yulia.
Thank you. Really appreciate for the presentation.
Merci, au revoir.
Merci. Merci à tous.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Bonsoir. Merci.
Merci.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. À la prochaine.
À la
Merci.
prochaine. Bonne journée.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank you so
Very
much.
much.